I'm Mark Hayward, the Director of Research in Sussex Partnership Trust. I also work as a clinical psychologist. And over the last few years, it's been my privilege to help develop the research clinics within Sussex Partnership. The research clinics are necessary because of the so-called implementation gap. So within Sussex Partnership Trust, we design and we deliver high-quality research, and those research studies produce evidence that we share with all those to whom it's relevant. But beyond sharing, there's that question about how does that evidence make its way into practice and influence the care and treatment that patients receive. And that gap, that implementation gap, can be cavernous, up to 17 years, we're told, between research evidence being created and it being implemented in routine clinical practice. That's not good enough. We established the research clinics in Sussex Partnership Trust to learn a little more about that gap and what we can do to cross the gap between the creation of research evidence and changes in clinical practice. The research clinics are like community hubs. They're hubs within clinical practice where clinicians, researchers and research staff come together. The researchers have probably played a role in developing the research evidence, and the clinicians can play a role in implementing that research evidence for the benefit of their patients. So the researchers will train the clinicians and then offer them ongoing supervision as they try to implement the new evidence and learn as they do that. And then we have research staff who are experts in collecting data. So as the clinicians implement these new interventions, the research staff will collect data so further learning can occur. What's it like to offer these interventions, not in a well-resourced research environment in a trial, but in routine clinical practice, where often resources are more stretched. And that data can help us learn about the enablers and barriers to doing that. And that data is invaluable, needs to be systematically collected, learned from, and the research staff are experts in collecting and looking after that data. We're learning many things from our research clinics. Firstly, we're learning about the enthusiasm of clinicians to deliver novel, evidence-based interventions. We're also learning that those clinicians not only need training, but they need ongoing supervision. They need to be trained in how to deliver the novel interventions, and then they need spaces to reflect upon the challenges they face as they try and do that. And the researchers can provide both the training and the supervisory spaces. We're learning that patients can derive many benefits from receiving these novel interventions. So we know that in research trials, the benefits occur for patients. And what we're learning in clinical practice in the research clinics is that the benefits can be just as great for patients within clinical practice. And that's really exciting to see. Sometimes people believe that actually the evidence that comes out of trials doesn't travel that well into clinical practice. But the research clinics are providing environments where we can explore that. And we're learning that actually the evidence can often travel across that gap. And we're also learning about data, the value of systematically collecting and learning from data within routine clinical environments. It's so important that that data helps us to keep learning as we travel across that gap between the generation of research evidence and its implementation in routine clinical practice.